Jack stood nervously at the entrance of the large, sleek building. The walls shimmered with a silver glow, and the air felt warm, filled with a gentle hum of technology. He had been traveling for days, moving from planet to planet, and now he was finally on Zaylor, an advanced alien world. He had come to meet the Zalorians, a peaceful and technologically brilliant species. Jack's mission was simple: to learn, observe, and hopefully foster a relationship between Earth and this alien civilization. But nothing could have prepared him for this first meeting. The room was open and airy, with huge windows letting in a view of the glowing alien city beyond. And there, standing in front of him, was Alara. She was beautiful, something Jack hadn't quite expected. He had read reports, seen pictures, but none of it did justice to how captivating she looked in person. Alara had soft, pale blue skin that shimmered slightly, almost as if it was alive. Her silver hair cascaded around her face in waves, and her eyes, bright green with a hint of gold, were full of curiosity. Alara smiled warmly as she stepped forward, and Jack's heart skipped a beat. He was no stranger to aliens, but seeing one up close, especially one so stunning, left him feeling a little awkward. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. "Welcome, human," Alara said, with a voice that was calm yet full of grace. "I am Alara. It's an honor to meet you." Jack blinked a few times, still frozen. He quickly gathered his thoughts. Thank you," he managed, his voice not quite as smooth as he wanted. "It's an honor to meet you too, Alara." Alara studied him for a moment, her eyes soft and understanding. Jack couldn't help but feel her gaze cutting through him, as if she could see into his very soul. He shook the thought away. This was an official meeting, not a time to get distracted by her presence. "So how can I assist you today?" she asked, her voice full of warmth. Jack nodded, trying to focus. We have a few things to discuss," Jack said, finally, finding his footing. He shifted the papers in his hand, feeling awkward. "I'm here to learn about your people, your technology, your way of life, and, well, I guess we can start there." Alara smiled again, and it made Jack feel both welcome and strangely exposed. There was something about her eyes, something that made him feel like she could see more than just his words. Without another word, she motioned for him to follow her. They walked through the building, which was filled with strange alien designs, smooth surfaces, and glowing lights. It all felt so different from anything Jack had ever seen. He tried to keep his mind on the task at hand, but every now and then he found himself sneaking glances at Alara. They came to a large, circular room where chairs floated midair. The design of the room was so alien to Jack it made his head spin. He took a seat, trying to focus, but his thoughts kept drifting. Alara sat across from him, her posture graceful and poised. Her face was calm, but Jack noticed a glimmer of curiosity in her eyes. "So, Jack," she began, her voice smooth as silk, "tell me about your world. Earth. What is it like?" Jack cleared his throat, feeling a little embarrassed. He had talked about Earth to many people before, but the way she was looking at him made him feel different, almost like she was reading more into his words than just the meaning. "Well, Earth it's full of life. There are billions of people, cities, forests, oceans. It's a mix of nature and technology. Some places are peaceful, but other places have their problems. But overall, we're trying to get along and make things better." Alara listened carefully, her green-gold eyes locked on his, and Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. There was something oddly comforting about her gaze, but at the same time, it made him feel exposed. Like she was seeing through him, not just hearing. His words, "You said you were trying to make things better," Alara said softly. "What do you mean by that?" Jack thought for a moment. "Well, we're trying to end wars, help the poor, protect the environment. There's a lot to fix, but we're working on it." Alara nodded, as if she understood more than he could. She tilted her head slightly and gave him a small smile. "That sounds wonderful," she said. "And you are doing all this while dealing with your own emotions, your own hearts?" Jack blinked. Well, yeah. Emotions are a big part of it all. Love, fear, hope, ... They guide us, even though they can get in the way sometimes. Alara leaned forward slightly, her eyes searching his face. I see, she said, her tone a little softer now. And what do you fear most, Jack? Jack's heart raced a little. Why was she asking him such personal questions? He thought for a moment. I guess. I fear that we won't be able to fix everything, that we'll keep making the same mistakes. There was a long pause, and Jack felt like he was being scrutinized. He wanted to say more, but something was stopping him. Then Alara's face softened. She smiled gently, and Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I understand, she said. But fear can be a teacher, as much as it can be an obstacle. It's how we face it that matters. Jack nodded, grateful for the insight. But then he felt a strange shift. His thoughts started to wander. He found himself thinking about how Alara's voice sounded so soothing, how beautiful she looked, how her presence made everything around him seem brighter. He quickly tried to focus his mind, but it was no. Yusi couldn't stop his thoughts. Alara's eyes sparkled. She tilted her head, a mischievous smile tugging at the corners of her lips. You know, Jack, she said slowly, I can hear your thoughts. All of them. Jack froze. His face turned bright red. What? He stammered, completely embarrassed. Alara didn't seem upset. Instead, she raised an eyebrow and smiled a little wider. Yes, I can hear them, I must say. Your thoughts are quite ... interesting. Jack's mind went blank. He was sure he was blushing as he realized what she had heard. His heart thudded in his chest, and he quickly tried to cover it up. I'm sorry, he stammered, but Alara only laughed softly. Don't be sorry, Jack, she said gently, her voice now laced with curiosity. I'm only curious about your thoughts. Don't worry, ... I won't bite. Jack felt his embarrassment rise as Alara's eyes twinkled with amusement. It seemed this was just the beginning of a very unusual and very revealing meeting. Jack's face burned with embarrassment. He could feel the heat spreading across his cheeks, his mind racing as Alara's words echoed in his head. I can hear your thoughts. All of them. He could hardly believe it. He had tried so hard to keep his thoughts in check, but somehow she had caught him at his most ... distracted. Lara, however, seemed completely at ease. She leaned back in her floating chair, her eyes twinkling with amusement. Don't worry, Jack, she said softly, her voice calm and soothing. It's not as alarming as it seems. My species has telepathic abilities. We communicate through thoughts, emotions, and even images. It's just how we connect. Jack nodded, though his mind was still spinning. Telepathy, he had read about it, but he never imagined it would be part of his first diplomatic encounter. Alara was not only reading his thoughts, but she was also doing it with a calmness that made him feel ... strange. The thought of her knowing what was going on in his mind was unsettling. I didn't mean for you to hear that, Jack said, trying to recover. I didn't know that ... He was stumbling, his words tripping over themselves. Alara smiled gently, her green-gold eyes fixed on him. It's all right. I don't judge you for your thoughts. It's only natural. For someone to be distracted by beauty... She paused and tilted her head, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. I've heard humans often get distracted by such things. Jack swallowed, his face turning a darker shade of red. He wasn't sure whether to be more embarrassed by his own thoughts or by the fact that Alara wasn't angry. She was just curious. I didn't mean anything bad, he muttered, feeling the weight of his words. I just ... Well, you're beautiful, and it's hard not to notice. Alara seemed to take this in stride, her expression warm, though a bit amused. It's only natural for you to feel that way, she said, nodding slightly. You're human. Emotions like attraction are a part of your nature, yes. Jack blinked, surprised by her calm reaction. I suppose so. But this is awkward. You're reading my mind? He trailed off, but Alara only chuckled softly. You didn't think I could hear your thoughts? Well, it's not uncommon for humans to have this reaction. But I assure you, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. simply how my people interact. Jack tried to take a deep breath. The entire situation was throwing him off balance. Here he was, trying to represent Earth, and instead of focusing on the mission, he was sitting across from a telepathic alien who could read his mind and tease him about his personal thoughts. The more he tried to regain control, the more he felt himself slipping. "Okay," Jack said, his voice a little steadier. "But you must have read some pretty personal stuff." Lara's eyes softened. "Yes, I have. But I'm not here to judge you, Jack. I'm here to understand you. All of you, your culture, your emotions, your thoughts. Humans are ... fascinating." Jack shifted in his chair. He had heard the word fascinating before. It was usually a polite way of saying someone was different. Maybe even ... strange. He wasn't sure if he liked the idea of being studied, but at least Alara didn't seem judgmental. She genuinely seemed to be trying to understand him. "I'm not really used to this ... telepathy thing," Jack admitted, scratching the back of his neck. "I mean, I read about it, sure, but hearing someone read my mind? That's ... different." Alara smiled, her gaze gentle. "It's different for many species, Jack, but it's how we Zalorians connect. We don't rely on words the same way you do. Thoughts flow freely between us. Sometimes we can feel each other's emotions as well. But it doesn't make your thoughts less important. It just means I can understand you more deeply." Jack nodded slowly, trying to make sense of everything. It was a lot to process. "I don't know how I feel about this," he confessed. "On Earth, we value privacy, try to keep our thoughts to ourselves. But you ... you can hear everything, even the stuff I'm not proud of." Ilara's expression softened. "I understand. But I don't believe you should be ashamed of your thoughts. We all have them. Some of them are kind, others are less so, but they don't define us. It's what we choose to do with them that matters." Jack thought about that for a moment. It was an interesting perspective. On Earth, people were taught to control their emotions, to keep certain thoughts hidden. But here in Alara's world, it seemed to be the opposite. Thoughts weren't something to hide, but something to understand. "I guess I've never thought of it that way," Jack said quietly. "I always thought that the things we keep private are the most important parts of us, the things no one else should see." Alara tilted her head, her green-gold eyes focused on him. "But isn't it the opposite, Jack? Aren't the things we hide often the parts we need to share the most? The things we fear to expose are sometimes the very things that connect us." Jack's mind raced. Her words made sense, but it felt like a shift in everything he had ever known. He had always tried to keep his vulnerabilities hidden, to protect himself from judgment. But here, in Alara's presence, he felt exposed, yet not in a bad way. It was as if he could see things more clearly, as if her openness gave him permission to be more honest with himself. "I never thought about it like that," Jack said, his voice quiet but sincere. "Maybe I've been hiding too much." Alara smiled, and Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth from her. "Maybe. But now, you know, Jack, that you're not alone in this. We're all just trying to understand ourselves and each other. Perhaps that's what makes us human." For the first time since arriving on Zaylor, Jack felt a little less nervous, a little more at ease. It wasn't that he had figured everything out, but Ilara's calmness made him feel like maybe, just maybe, things weren't as complicated as they seemed. They were simply ... different. Jack sat back in his chair, trying to process everything Alara had just shared with him. It felt like his whole world had turned upside down. He had come to Xylair thinking he was just here to observe, to understand the Zalorian people and their technology. But now, sitting across from Alara, he felt like he was learning about himself in ways he hadn't expected. Alara was still watching him, her green-gold eyes steady and calm. She didn't seem bothered by the fact that Jack had been flustered. Instead, she looked ... interested. Jack couldn't quite figure her out one moment. She was teasing him, and the next she was speaking with such depth, making him feel like he was in the presence of someone far wiser than himself. "So Jack," Alara began, her voice light and thoughtful. "You said that humans are trying to make things better. Do you think it's possible to fix everything?" Jack was quiet for a moment, the question weighing heavily on him. He had thought about this before, about the problems on Earth. about the wars, the environmental damage, the inequality. There were so many issues to solve, and the thought of fixing everything seemed almost impossible. I don't know. Jack admitted, "It's hard to say. We try, but it always feels like we're fighting against something. Sometimes it seems like no matter how much progress we make, something else comes up. But we can't stop trying, right?" Ilara nodded slowly, as if understanding the difficulty in his words. "That sounds ... familiar. My people too have had to face challenges. But we've learned that the journey toward change is just as important as the end result. The effort itself shapes who we are." Jack looked at her, surprised by how much he could relate to what she was saying. Ilara's calm confidence made him feel like maybe, just maybe, there was hope for Earth. Maybe humans could make things better if they just kept trying, like she said. "So what about you?" Jack asked, curious. "What about Zaylor? You said your people have faced challenges? How did you, ... I don't know, deal with them?" Ilara smiled softly. "We have had our struggles. For many years, Zaylor was a world divided. Different regions fought for control, and our people were torn apart by distrust and fear. But over time, we learned to connect with each other, not through force or fear, but through understanding and shared vision. We learned that unity could overcome division." Jack found himself listening intently. That's impressive. Sounds like it was a long, hard journey," Ilara said, her expression thoughtful. "But it taught us a valuable lesson. It's not the strength of our weapons that determines our future, it's the strength of our hearts and minds. We learned to trust each other, and that trust has made us stronger than any army could." Jack felt a sense of awe. It was hard to imagine Earth ever being that united. The divisions on his planet felt so deep, and the idea of achieving true unity seemed like something only a dream. But Ilara's words made him think. Maybe it wasn't impossible. Maybe there was a way forward, after all. "Do you think humans could learn that?" Jack asked, his voice almost hesitant. "Could we ever be as united as Zaylor?" Lara's gaze softened, and she leaned slightly forward, her eyes locking with his. "It's not about being exactly like us, Jack. It's about finding your own way. Every world, every species has its own path to follow. But I believe that if humans learn to trust each other, to value cooperation over conflict, you can achieve great things." Jack felt a surge of hope in his chest. He wanted to believe her, he really did. But the world he knew seemed so far from that kind of unity. There were so many voices, so many struggles, but hearing Ilara speak with such confidence made him want to try harder? To believe that maybe there was more to Earth's future than what seemed possible right now? "Thank you, Ilara," Jack said quietly. That ... that means a lot. I guess I've been so focused on the problems that I forgot to think about the possibilities." Ilara smiled, her expression kind. "That's understandable. It's easy to focus on what's wrong. But sometimes, looking at what's possible is the first step toward change." They sat in silence for a while, both of them lost in thought. Jack looked out the window at the alien city below. Streets were filled with strange creatures, all going about their day, but there was a sense of peace in the air, a sense of purpose. Maybe that's what Earth needed, purpose, a shared goal that went beyond differences. "So, tell me more about your world," Ilara said, breaking the silence. "I'm curious. How do humans experience emotions?" "Read a lot about your species, but I want to understand it from your perspective." Jack smiled, grateful for the shift in the conversation. This was something he could talk about without feeling like he was being judged. Well, emotions are everything, I guess. We experience love, fear, joy, sadness. And sometimes those emotions get in the way of what we want. But they also drive us to do things, to care about others, to fight for what we believe in. Ilara nodded, her eyes focused on him. "That's very human," she said, her voice full of understanding. "You are not afraid to feel deeply. You embrace your emotions, even when they are difficult." Jack felt a strange sense of connection to her, as if they were bridging the gap between their two worlds. It wasn't just about sharing information anymore. It was about understanding each other on a deeper level. I guess you could say we wear our hearts on our sleeves, Jack joked. A little more relaxed now. We don't always make sense, but we try. Elara laughed softly. I can see that. It's a quality I admire. And it's one of the reasons I find your species so intriguing. Your ability to feel so deeply is what makes you ... unique. Jack felt a warmth spread through him at her words. For the first time in a long while, he felt like someone truly understood him, not just as a human or a diplomat, but as Jack, with all his complexities and contradictions. And maybe, just maybe, that was the key to finding a way forward, to truly connect. Jack sat back in his chair, still processing the conversation. He had never imagined a simple diplomatic mission would turn into such an eye-opening experience. It wasn't just about learning the Zolorian technology or culture anymore. It was about understanding a new way of thinking. Elara had a way of speaking that made everything seem so ... clear, so possible. I'm glad we're talking like this, Jack said, breaking the silence. I mean, it's not what I expected, but I feel like I'm learning more than I ever thought I would. Elara smiled warmly. I'm happy to hear that, but let's make things a bit more interesting. She leaned forward, her eyes twinkling. With something playful? How about a game? A game? Jack asked, raising an eyebrow. He wasn't sure what kind of game she was talking about, but he was intrigued. Yes, Elara replied with a soft laugh. A game where we communicate only through thoughts. No words, it's just minds. Jack blinked, feeling a bit uneasy. He had already learned that Elara could read his thoughts with ease. But now, she wanted to make a game of it. Wasn't sure. He was ready for that, but something about her confidence made him hesitate. I'm not sure, Jack said slowly. I mean, you can already read my thoughts. How is that fair? Lara chuckled softly, her smile never leaving her face. It's not about fairness, Jack. It's about understanding each other better. It will be a challenge for both of us. You'll learn how to control your thoughts, and I'll learn to communicate in a way that's ... new. Jack paused, weighing the options in his mind. He wasn't one to back down from a challenge, especially not when it came to understanding. More about Elara's species. Besides, he thought, if nothing else, it would be an interesting way to pass the time. All right, he said finally, a bit of a grin forming on his face. Let's play. Elara's eyes lit up with excitement. Good. Close your eyes, Jack. Jack did as she said, and for a moment there was complete silence. He could feel the weight of Elara's presence across from him, the tension building as he waited for what would happen next. Then he felt an image in his mind. At first it was just a flash, like a fleeting thought, but then it became clearer. The image was of a large tree. It had tall, twisting branches with green leaves that seemed to glow faintly. It was peaceful, calm, and natural. Jack's eyes opened in surprise, his mind still processing the image. What was that? He asked, though he knew he hadn't spoken out loud. Elara's voice filled his mind, clear and gentle. A tree, an ancient one. In my world, we have trees like these that are important to our people. They symbolize wisdom and growth. I wanted to share this image with you. Jack took a deep breath. That was amazing, he admitted, still in awe of the experience. You showed me that tree in my mind? Yes, Elara replied. Just as you can share images and feelings with me. But now, you try. Share something with me, Jack. Something that means something to you. Jack hesitated. He had always been a bit private about his personal life, but Elara had already shared so much with him. He took another deep breath and closed his eyes again. Tried to focus, pushing aside his doubts. He thought about Earth, his home. Vast oceans, the busy cities, and the quiet forests that were so far removed from the chaos of daily life. Then he tried to send that image to Ayla. At first it felt strange, like his thoughts weren't quite connecting. But then, as if on instinct, the image appeared. A vast, endless ocean with waves crashing gently against the shore. He could almost feel the cool breeze in the air and hear the sound of the water. Jack opened his eyes again, feeling nervous but relieved at the same time. Did you ... get it? Elara's smile was soft, but there was a spark in her eyes. That's Earth, isn't it? The oceans?
Yes.
It's beautiful, Jack. Jack's heart lifted. He was surprised at how real it felt to share that with her. "Yeah," he said, a bit of pride slipping into his voice. "It's Earth. We've got a lot of it. ... A lot of beauty." Lara nodded. "I can see that. I can feel it too. It's peaceful," Jack smiled, feeling a little less self-conscious now. They were sharing more than just thoughts. They were sharing experiences, emotions, and parts of themselves that were hard to put into words. "This is incredible," Jack said softly. "It's like we're speaking without saying anything." "At all?" Alara's smile grew wider. "Exactly. It's a deeper connection. And now that we've shared, let's try something else." Jack frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Now I want you to think about something that's troubling you," Alara said, her voice a little more serious now. "Something that weighs on your mind. Don't say it out loud. Just share it with me." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure he was ready to share his worries, his fears, but he knew this game was about honesty. Alara had shared so much already, and he wanted to understand her better. So, reluctantly, he closed his eyes again. He thought about Earth's problems, climate change, war, hunger, poverty, things that seemed like they would never be fixed. He thought about the pressure he felt, the responsibility to make things better, and how often he felt helpless. The image was heavy in his mind, a dark cloud that seemed to hang over everything. He opened his eyes quickly, a little startled by the intensity of the thoughts he had shared. Ilara's gaze softened as she spoke, her voice calm and steady in his mind. "I feel it, Jack. I understand your fears, the weight of wanting to fix everything. But remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. You're not alone in this, and you don't have to carry everything by yourself." Jack swallowed, hard, feeling a lump in his throat. He hadn't expected this to feel so understood, so connected, in such a short time. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Ilara's eyes met his, and for a moment, everything seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them, connected in a way that was deeper than words. The day was growing late, and the soft hum of the city outside had dimmed into a quiet, peaceful calm. Jack and Alara had spent the last few hours talking, learning about each other, sharing their thoughts, and even playing their mental game. It was a strange but comforting feeling, a kind of deep connection that Jack hadn't expected. He wasn't sure how it had happened, but in a few short hours, he felt as though Alara had become more than just an alien diplomat. She was someone he could talk to, someone who understood more than just his words. But now, as they sat across from each other in the quiet room, there was a new tension in the air, something unspoken but present. Jack had shared a lot about his life, his fears, and even the challenges Earth faced. But there was still something inside him that he hadn't revealed, something personal, something that he had kept buried for a long time. Ilara seemed to sense this. She studied him closely, her green-gold eyes soft with understanding. "Jack," she said, her voice calm and gentle, "I know we've shared a lot today, but I feel like there's something else on your mind. Something you're not saying?" Jack's breath caught in his throat. For a moment, he felt like she could see straight through him, as though every thought he'd ever had was laid bare. But this wasn't like before. It wasn't about awkward thoughts or silly images. This was different. This was something real. He opened his mouth to speak, but found the words stuck. The truth had been hiding inside him for years, and the idea of letting it out felt impossible. But Alara's steady gaze made him feel like maybe it was time to face it. "All right," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. He took a deep breath and finally spoke. "I've always been afraid of failing, not just for myself, but for everyone on Earth. There's so much that needs fixing, and I feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not making a real difference." Expression didn't change, but her eyes softened even more. "I understand," she said, her voice low and comforting. "The weight of the world can feel unbearable at times, especially when you care so deeply." Jack looked down, his hands clenched into fists. He had never told anyone this before. It felt strange, admitting it out loud. I think about it every day. The wars, the pollution, the suffering. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of something, watching it all fall apart, and no matter how much I try, I can't stop it. Alara reached out, her hand hovering just above his. She didn't touch him, but the gesture was enough. You're not alone in this, Jack, she said softly. I can feel how much you care. And that's why you'll never give up, no matter how hard it gets. Your heart is strong. Jack's throat tightened, and he had to swallow hard. But what if it's not enough? He asked, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. What if we can't fix it? What if Earth's already beyond saving? Alara's eyes never left his, and for a moment she was silent. Then she spoke, her voice filled with wisdom and compassion. Jack, I've seen many worlds. I've seen civilizations rise and fall. Some of them failed, yes. But many of them, even when they were broken, found a way to rebuild. It's not about being perfect. It's about finding the strength to keep going, to keep trying. Jack shook his head, feeling a sense of doubt that he couldn't shake. It's hard to keep trying when you don't see the progress. Feels like it's falling apart. I understand, Alara said, her voice gentle, but progress isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's the small steps that matter. The quiet moments of kindness, the acts of courage that go unnoticed. Those are the things that add up over time. Jack let her words sink in. He had been so focused on the big picture, the wars, the political struggles, the environmental disasters, that he had forgotten about the smaller, quieter victories. The things that didn't make the news, the things that didn't seem important. At first, he thought about the people who worked every day to make the world a better place in their own ways. Even if the change was small. I never thought about it that way, Jack admitted. I guess I've been looking at everything through the wrong lens. Lara smiled, her eyes warm with understanding. It's easy to lose sight of the little things when you're overwhelmed by the big picture. But sometimes the little things are what matter most. Jack's mind raced as he processed her words. He thought about his own life, the things he had done that felt insignificant at the time, but it helped others. He thought about the small acts of kindness that had made a difference in his life. Maybe Alara was right. Maybe he didn't need to fix everything all at once. Maybe all he needed to do was keep moving forward. One step at a time. He met Ilara's gaze again, his heart feeling a little lighter. Thank you, he said quietly. I needed to hear that. I think I've been too hard on myself. Ilara gave him a small, encouraging smile. It's all right. We all carry burdens, Jack. It's part of being human. But remember, you don't have to carry it alone. For the first time in a long while, Jack felt a sense of relief wash over him. He didn't have all the answers, and he wasn't sure what the future held. But he knew one thing for certain. He didn't have to face it alone. And that thought, simple as it was, gave him the strength to keep going. I think I understand now, Jack said, his voice steady. I don't need to have all the answers. I just need to keep trying. Ilara's smile grew. Exactly. That's enough. The next morning, Jack woke up with a strange sense of clarity. The past few days on Zalar had been unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had arrived with a mission to observe and learn, but somewhere along the way, his journey had turned into something much more personal. He had learned not just about the Zalorian people, their culture, and their technology, but about himself, his fears, his hopes for the future. The conversation with Alara had changed him. It wasn't just her telepathic abilities or her calm, wise demeanor. Was the way she made him see the world differently. For the first time in a long while, Jack felt like maybe, just maybe, things on Earth weren't as hopeless as he had believed. As he walked through the corridors of the Zalorian city, the bright lights and smooth surfaces no longer seemed strange. To him, he had spent so much time feeling like an outsider in this alien world, but now the city felt welcoming, almost familiar. It was as though he was beginning to see it through Ilar's eyes. Her optimism had rubbed off on him. He was heading to the central meeting room where he and Alara had agreed to meet for their final discussion before his departure. Jack wasn't sure what to expect. He had learned so much in such a short time, and he couldn't help but feel a little anxious about leaving. He had grown fond of Alara and the connection they had shared. More than that, he had come to realize how important she had become to him. When he arrived, Alara was already there. Waiting, she was standing by one of the large windows looking out over the city. Her posture was calm, almost regal, but there was a gentleness in her expression as she turned to greet him. "Good morning, Jack," she said, her voice warm and inviting. Jack smiled as he walked toward her. "Morning, Alara." She studied him for a moment, her eyes scanning his face with a hint of curiosity. "You look ... different today? Lighter, perhaps?" Jack nodded, feeling the truth in her words. "I think I am different," he said. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm starting to understand things a little better." Alara's smile deepened. "I'm glad to hear that. I think you've come a long way, Jack." They both sat down at the table in the center of the room, and for a while there was silence between them. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, but a peaceful one, as if they both understood the weight of the moment. Jack wasn't sure what to say next, but he knew he wanted to express something important. "Alara," he began slowly, "I want to thank you for everything, for the time you've spent with me, for teaching me so much. You've opened my eyes in ways I didn't think were possible." Alara looked at him, her gaze soft but intense. "I've only shared what I know, Jack, but it was your willingness to listen, to learn, that has made the difference." Jack shifted in his chair, his thoughts turning to earth. "I've been so focused on what's wrong with the world, on all the things that need fixing. But I think you're right. It's not just about fixing everything at once. It's about taking small steps, making a difference in whatever way we can." Alara nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Exactly. Change is a process, Jack. It doesn't happen overnight. But if you continue to believe in the possibility of progress, you will find a way." Jack looked out the window, his mind racing. He thought about the people back on Earth, the ones working tirelessly to make a difference, to improve the world one small act at a time. I'd always believed that the problems were too big to solve, but now he saw that maybe he had been wrong. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope. "I think I'm starting to understand," Jack said, his voice filled with conviction. "It's not about solving everything right now. It's about keeping the hope alive, about doing what we can with what we have." Alara smiled, her eyes glowing with pride. "Yes, Jack, that's exactly it. You've come a long way. And now, I think you're ready to take that understanding back with you." Jack turned to face her, his heart heavy but full of gratitude. "I'll never forget what you've taught me, Alara, and I'll make sure to pass it on, I promise." For a moment, they just sat there, letting the silence fill the space between them. Jack felt a deep sense of peace, like he had finally found some clarity. There was still so much to do, so many problems to face, but he wasn't afraid anymore. He knew now that he didn't have to face them alone. "Well," Jack said after a while, breaking the silence, "I guess this is it. I have to go back to Earth, but I don't know when I'll be back." Alara looked at him, her expression softening. "You will return, Jack. I have no doubt about that. And when you do, we will continue where we left off." Jack smiled, his heart lifting at the thought. "I hope so. I really do." Alara reached out, her hand resting gently on his. "You've learned something valuable, Jack, and that knowledge will guide you. Just remember that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your own. There are always people who care, people who will help." Jack squeezed her hand, feeling the strength of her words. "I'll remember that, promise." As they stood to leave, Jack felt a sense of sadness, but also a feeling of hope. The time he had spent with Alara had changed him, had opened his eyes to a new way of thinking, a new way of seeing the world. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, he felt like he could face it with confidence. As he walked out of the room, ready to return to Earth, Jack knew that he would carry the lessons he had learned on Xalar with him for the rest of his life. And no matter what happened, he would keep moving forward one small step at a time.